Howard was a guy that looked like he was a good player that was a big part of their plan, and all of a sudden he's off to Philadelphia.
Yeah, they did not like the way he played last year. They felt like he came in overweight and never got in shape.
Yeah, and so we'll see how Montgomery holds up, and maybe they'll have an opportunity to punch the ball out on him or something like that, and we'll see. But as I said, I think so many interesting storylines in this game, and for example, what happens with the Vikings punt return game if BB's out? Are they going to use Abdullah? Are they going to use BC Johnson, a rookie in that tough situation in Soldier Field with that wind blowing?
Back. Yep.
I mean, I'm guessing it's probably Abdullah as the veteran out there.
Probably.
If BB is indeed out, and then of course,
is Marcus Sherrill's available?
I don't know.
I have to check on that.
Yeah.
That was the great thing about Marcus Sherrill. He was so reliable.
Yeah, I mean, he was
in
New Orleans, they gave him some money. I can't believe that they cut him already, but it's possible. And then of course the story that's breaking today.
Nope, he is a free agency. He is a free agent.
Yeah,
so
that could be a possibility.
They reached an injury settlement with him, so he's available. And man, Marcus is one of the smartest, most reliable football players I've ever been around.
Yeah, and then the question is he healthy right now?
Right.
If he's had an injury settlement, it may have been a 6-week or 8-week injury. We'll see. But I think that the other interesting news, as I said, Laquan Treadwell appears to be headed back to Minnesota to be signed as their kind of insurance policy at wide receiver. Would BB perhaps on the shelf with an ankle injury?
It looks like he's definitely on the shelf, yeah.
And so I don't know that we can count on a lot from Laquan Treadwell, and the expectations are very low. But he does know the system. He, as you mentioned, a very good blocking wide receiver, which could be good in the running game. And so we'll see. I think what they're going to do is a lot of that 2 and 3 tight end offense still. One of the nice things to see last week was the emergence of Irv Smith Jr., who I've been kind of waiting on because I've been watching him in training camp and all throughout the offseason. Just such an athletic, a very sure-handed receiver, and he had 3 catches for 60 yards in the game and also 1 called back. And so I think Irv Smith Jr. is going to take on a bigger role, as perhaps Kyle Rudolph's role may be lessened to a certain extent. However, Zimmer did point out that Rudolph very effective in the run blocking game so far this year, and so I think both of those guys are going to be key. I expect to see a lot of the 2 tight end, 3 tight end offense, and not much with the 3 wide receivers at this point in time. So we'll see how that shakes out. But if they get behind in a game and you got to throw, but that's the beauty of Smith. He can also kind of flank out as a wide receiver in effect and play out of the slot and be very effective and be kind of a tough matchup for teams. So I like that they got Irv Smith Jr. involved. I think the other positive thing out of the Oakland game was Mike Hughes' return at corner, and we'll see if Mackenzie Alexander could be back in the next week or two and how that shakes out too. So the injury front is always a big factor in the NFL, and so we will see on some of those guys. But Hughes had a really nice first play, gave up a couple catches in the game, but I think he's a guy that will get better and better. And as we've talked about often, I think they want him to be a starter by next season, because Absolutely. I don't think they're going to keep Trey Waynes and Xavier Rhodes both at north of $10 million a year on their next deal, perhaps. And Trey Waynes had a very good game against the Raiders, and Xavier Rhodes did too, and he played much better, had a good bounce back from a kind of a shaky Packer game. So I think that both of those started corners are kind of primed for a good game, and they're going to have a challenge with that Bear passing game if indeed Trubisky can get the ball to Anthony Miller and Allen Robinson and Taylor Gabriel. Those are 3 pretty good receivers.
They are, and Trey Burton's starting to come back and be a factor as well, and
That's
obviously
right.
They don't mind throwing to their backs as well. Hey, tell me about B52 Burgers and Brew.
Yeah, B52 Burgers and Brew. Love the restaurant. There's actually 2 restaurants in Inver Grove Heights and Lakeville. And the Inver Grove Heights location, 5 minutes from Vikings headquarters, where we hold our Monday Night Purple show on News Talk 830 WCCO. As I said last night, Eric Kendricks was our guest. Previously, we've had Harrison Smith and Anthony Harris. And may head to the offensive side of the ball next week. We've been heavy on defense so far. But B52 Burgers and Brew, wonderful restaurant, great people over there, and hosting Monday Night Purple. And our next show, as I said, next Monday, 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. where we'll talk about the Bears game and look ahead to the Vikings trip to the Meadowlands, where they won't have to face Saquon Barkley. We'll talk about that in a minute.
They're going to have to face Daniel Jones.
Yes, that's right.
Looking pretty good.
He is looking pretty good. But B52 Burgers and Brew, I encourage everybody to head over there. Terrific menu, 25 varieties of great burgers, terrific entrees and appetizers. B52 will have Monday night specials. They have a fun rooftop patio and a fantastic Sunday brunch. So check out their website, b52burgersandbrew.com, and hope to see you there for Monday Night Purple.
Cool. Case Keenum has been a topic of conversation. And listen, I'm not going to pretend I've been dead right about Case at every step. When Bradford went down, Case stepped in. I didn't think he was the right guy because of his history. I know he's the classic inspirational backup who comes in and might win a game for you. He might be good for a month, but team after team, after having him in their building, has said, not for us. He just makes too many mistakes. He puts the ball at risk. Then he had a great season. He played fantastic for this team. He got until the playoffs. He was a great regular season quarterback. He was shaky against New Orleans. He was terrible against Philadelphia. They decided to move on. I agreed with that move. I agreed because of the quarterback market at that point, because this team was ready to win, and they needed somebody right away. I agreed with signing Kirk Cousins. Now, people might not like the fact that he got so much money and he's not even the number one focal point of this offense right now, but I thought they had to make that kind of a move, even if it didn't work out. And now, what are we seeing? Case Keenum goes to the Broncos as a starter, doesn't go well. They get rid of him. He goes to the Washington Redskins, and now the Redskins are 0-3, and Case Keenum is turning the ball over like crazy. This is why he hasn't stuck with an NFL team, because coaches just don't trust him. Mike Zimmer just never really trusted him.
Yeah, I think what he is a really good number 2 quarterback.
Yeah.
And
that's good.
And I think he'll be that in Washington pretty soon.
Very soon, yeah.
When they figure out when the time is right to get their number 1 pick, Haskins, in the lineup, the quarterback from Ohio State they drafted this year. And so we'll see when that develops, which I think will be pretty soon, because things are going south in a hurry in Washington. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jay Gruden is out within the next couple weeks, and because Snyder cannot be feeling real good about that situation, and it's just been kind of a disaster in Washington almost forever since he owned the team, and just a few good years here and there. When Shanahan was there, they won a division, but wow, it's just been downhill, and Jay Gruden, 1 playoff appearance in 6 years, and sounds like things are not going well for the Gruden family entirely. Although John doesn't have to worry because he's got his 10-year contract.
But he might lose a lot of games in those 10 years.
That's right, and they're heading to Vegas next year, and so we'll see about that and what John Gruden, how he pans out in the long run. But they've had a lot of draft choices, and they've got some players, but got to play better than they did last week for sure. So, yeah, Case Keenum is kind of showing what people thought he was, and that's unfortunate because he's a good guy and hard-working guy, and just hasn't quite panned out. But for all the Viking fans that say, "Oh, we should have kept Keenum and saved the $10 million and put it in the offensive line and not signed Cousins," well,
this is what you'd end up with.
That's right, and Cousins, the jury's still out. Of course, we know that. And the Green Bay game was a disaster for him, but he did bounce back last week. I think this is a really key litmus test for Kirk Cousins going into Chicago, looking for that signature win.
Mm-hmm. Prime time.
Prime time.
Well, actually, this one is. I was thinking about later
late
in the
afternoon
season.
prime time.
I was thinking, yeah,
it is a doubleheader game.
It's a doubleheader game. It's not a prime time.
Right, but it's an opportunity for him against a Bears team that's not playing great offensively, especially. They're still playing great defensively, and so if he cannot turn the ball over and just not make the crucial mistake, which he did in that Sunday night game last year in Chicago. He threw a bad interception to Eddie Jackson, which helped turn the game in Chicago's favor. That's where it's going to be critical, because he's going to face some heat. He's going to have to be willing to take a sack if he has to. He's going to have to throw it away when he has to. He's going to have to improvise, and that's been the big question about Kirk Cousins. Can he improvise? Can he escape pressure? And it would certainly help if they have a solid running attack this week. I just have a hard time seeing Dalvin Cook continue that 100-yard rushing streak this week. It's going to be tough sledding in Chicago against that Chicago front, and Now, as I said, if Akeem Hicks is out, that'll help their cause. But even their backups are pretty tough, as we saw in the fourth quarter last night for the Bears. And but to me, this is a big game for Cousins and for that Viking offensive line, zone blocking scheme, all the stuff we've been talking about and hearing about and has been so successful for 3 weeks. Here's the litmus test. You're going to get up against a top-flight defense on the road. Can they produce?
Right. And I have another thing I want to talk about. Let's wrap up the show kind of on that topic. I want to talk about the Vikings coaching right now. Once again, thank you to White Bear Lake Superstore and B52 Burgers and Brew in Lakeville and in Inver Grove Heights. Also remember, Bite Squad sponsors the entire network. Use promo code TALKNORTH for first delivery fee waived. Keep using them after that. Also go to bitesquad.com because they continually have promos that might affect you where you live. They also have a member-only deal where if you pay $5.99 a month, you get free delivery for a month with anything within 4 miles. So check that out. Coaches are always, to some degree, on the hot seat. They are always under fire for every decision they make. I just want to take a moment here and say I really like what the Vikings coaching staff has done. We know Zimmer's a good defensive tactician, and he's had 2 home games where he's really shut down opposing offenses from the get-go. I thought the fact that they bounced back after the bad start in Green Bay and shut out Aaron Rodgers for whatever it was, 2.5 quarters was really impressive. The offense should have won that game. And I really think that, hey, it's a very small percentage of the season so far. But Kubiak and Stefanski, I love that they have stuck with what they plan to do. They've given Cousins easy throws. They have run the ball extremely effectively, not just with Cook, with anybody who's in the backfield. They have kept defenses off balance. I think, the only thing they've really been second-guessed for was the Kirk Cousins play-action interception in Green Bay, but I thought that was a great call. Cousins just should have thrown the ball away. So to date, I really like what this coaching staff has done.
And I agree, and I'll throw Rick Dennison into the equation too as the new offensive line coach, kind of the running game guru of the zone blocking scheme. And yeah, you got to say they've done an excellent job of implementing their plan, what they wanted to do with making this team a running team and being more effective running. They were number 30 rushing team last year in the NFL. Now they're number 2. That's such a dramatic turnaround. Basically running for almost 100 more yards a game. And a lot of that we know is Dalvin Cook and his ingenuity, his creativity, his quickness, his speed, his power when he needs to. But Alexander Madison has been effective. He had 59 yards rushing last week and had a touchdown, his first career touchdown, a great leaping, diving touchdown. Mike Boone gets in there, gets 28 yards rushing. And so there's a lot of really good things happening with that scheme, and I do give him credit, and I think they are trying to protect Cousins in that regard and not make him throw as much. And it's really fascinating when you look at the stats. He's only thrown for 200 yards in one of the 3 games, and last year he only threw for under 200 yards twice out of 16 games.
Right.
And so that's such a complete role reversal. The question is, when he gets down, can he rally the team? And that's what remains to be seen. It didn't happen in Green Bay in the final analysis. And will it happen this week if that opportunity is there in Chicago? We'll see. It's a tough task, and we'll have our picks here coming up, but it's, I think, a real challenge for them.
I have learned, I've been covering the Vikings since 1990, I have learned that you should never take a victory in Soldier Field for granted, even when the Vikings are the superior team. In this case, their teams are pretty evenly matched. At least we believe they are at this point. So if I were going to look at this completely rationally, I would just pick the Bears because the Bears usually beat the Vikings in Chicago. I'm going to be irrational. I like so many of the things I've seen from the Vikings. I think the fact the Vikings had an easy home victory on Sunday. The Bears had a road Monday night game in which they got some key players banged up. I think that evens things out in terms of the Bears having the home field advantage. I don't think this Vikings team is as dependent on pure speed and quickness as many of them are who have struggled on that sandy soil at Soldier Field. Because of all that, I think the Vikings pull out a tough one. I'm going to say this is kind of an old school black and blue division, NFC North, and formerly NFC Central matchup. I'm going to say something like 20-18. The Vikings win it.
Wow, you're right on where I was almost
really?
On the number.
That's funny.
And I would feel better about the Vikings' chances if I knew that